What if 2026 quietly becomes one of the best years in decades to buy an airplane in the United States? Not necessarily the most expensive airplane, not the fastest, but the smartest one for the kind of flying most people actually do. If you're a senior pilot in the US, Canada, or Europe, especially someone thinking about buying your first aircraft, the choices today are surprisingly good. Better than many people realize. But here's the challenge. The market is full of options, from a simple Cessna 150 to advanced machines like the Daher TBM 960, or even jets like the Honda Jet Elite 2. The range of aircraft can be overwhelming. So today we're going to slow things down and focus on 6 airplanes that make exceptional sense to buy in the US in 2026. Not just because they're good airplanes, but because they balance cost, safety, usability, and long-term ownership satisfaction, particularly for pilots who want enjoyable flying without unnecessary complexity. And as we go through this list, I want you to think about one question. What kind of flying do you actually want to do? Not what sounds impressive, not what looks good on paper, but the flights you imagine taking on a calm Saturday morning. Let's begin. Number 6, the Cessna 172 Skyhawk. It might seem almost too obvious, but there's a reason the Cessna 172 Skyhawk has remained the most recognizable general aviation airplane in the world. For a pilot entering aircraft ownership, especially someone transitioning from rental aircraft, it represents stability, predictable handling, excellent parts availability, and perhaps most importantly, a massive support network of instructors, mechanics, and owners. For senior pilots returning to aviation, this familiarity can be incredibly valuable. You're not fighting the airplane, you're flying it. Now compare that to stepping directly into something faster like a Lancair 4P or a Cessna TTX. Those are wonderful machines, but they demand sharper transitions and greater attention to performance management. A Skyhawk is forgiving, and forgiveness is underrated in aviation. But I want to ask you something. If you were buying your first airplane today, would you start simple with something like a Cessna 172 Skyhawk, or would you go straight into something faster? Think about that and share your answer in the comments. Your perspective may help someone else make their decision. Number 5, the Piper PA-28 Cherokee family. Specifically aircraft like the Piper Cherokee 140, 160 horsepower. These airplanes represent one of the most affordable and practical entry points into aircraft ownership. Stable low-wing handling, straightforward systems, and operating costs that remain manageable compared to more complex aircraft. For pilots who want relaxed cross-country capability, the Cherokee platform has proven itself for decades. Now, here's something interesting. Many experienced pilots eventually return to simpler airplanes after years of flying more complex machines. Why? Because simplicity often brings the most enjoyment. Flying a Cherokee on a quiet evening is a very different experience than managing the systems of a high-performance aircraft. And sometimes, that's exactly what people want. Number 4, the Cessna 182 Skylane. Now we step up in capability. The Cessna 182 Skylane has long been considered one of the most versatile personal aircraft ever built. More power than the 172, better climb performance, excellent load-carrying capability. For pilots who want to travel longer distances, perhaps visiting family across several states, the Skylane offers a comfortable balance between simplicity and performance. Many owners describe it as the sweet spot of general aviation. It's also extremely adaptable. Add modern avionics, and suddenly a decades-old Skylane becomes a surprisingly capable cross-country platform. Compared with stepping directly into something like a Piper PA-46 Malibu or Daher TBM 850-900 series, the Skylane keeps workload manageable, and that matters more than people often admit. Number 3, the Cirrus SR-22. Now we enter a different category. Modern, fast, technologically advanced, yet still designed for owner pilots. The Cirrus SR-22 has become one of the most successful personal aircraft designs of the past 25 years. Speed, safety systems, and advanced avionics make it extremely appealing to pilots who want serious cross-country capability. But here's something worth discussing. The SR-22 introduces more automation and higher performance compared to the aircraft we've already mentioned. That can be empowering, but it also requires discipline. Training matters, currency matters. And this brings up an important topic: Do modern avionics make flying easier? Or do they introduce new complexities? Some pilots feel glass cockpits reduce workload dramatically. Others feel they require constant management. I'd love to hear your opinion. If you've flown aircraft with advanced panels like the Cirrus SR-22 or Diamond DA-40 Star, tell us your experience in the comments. Number 2. The Diamond DA-62. Now we move into the world of twin-engine aircraft. Historically, twins were often considered expensive and complex. But the Diamond DA-62 changed that perception for many pilots. Efficient diesel engines, excellent fuel economy, modern aerodynamics, and a surprisingly comfortable cabin for passengers. For pilots who want redundancy, the reassurance of two engines, the DA-62 provides that capability without the heavy fuel consumption associated with older twins like the Beechcraft Baron G58 or Piper Seneca V. For many owners, it represents a modern interpretation of the personal traveling aircraft. Now imagine a typical mission: 3 or 4 passengers, a 600-mile trip, smooth high-altitude cruise. This is exactly where the DA-62 shines. And finally, number 1, the aircraft that may represent one of the most interesting ownership opportunities in the US in 2026, the Beechcraft Bonanza G36. This airplane has one of the longest production histories in aviation, and there's a reason for that. The Bonanza combines speed, comfort, and remarkable build quality. It's a serious traveling machine. Faster than a Cessna 182 Skylane, more spacious than many single-engine aircraft, and with a reputation for stability that experienced pilots deeply respect. For pilots who want a capable cross-country aircraft without stepping into turbine ownership, the Bonanza often becomes the natural destination. It sits right in the middle between practical and premium. Not as complex as a Piper M600 SLS, not as expensive as a Pilatus PC-12, but extremely capable. Now here's where things get interesting. Because choosing the best airplane isn't really about rankings, it's about alignment. Let's imagine 3 different pilots. One wants short, relaxed local flights from a rural airport. A Piper Cub J3 or Aviate Husky might be perfect. Another wants to visit family 2 states away regularly. A Cessna 182 Skylane or Piper Saratoga makes sense. A third wants fast cross-country capability with modern avionics. The Cirrus SR-22 or Mooney M20U Ovation Ultra becomes appealing. The airplane must match the mission, not the ego. And that principle has saved many pilots from expensive mistakes. Now let's zoom out even further. Some people entering aviation immediately start looking at turbine aircraft. The Pilatus PC-12 NGX, the Daher TBM 960, even owner-flown jets like the Cirrus Vision Jet SF-50. And yes, those aircraft are extraordinary, but they also require significant training, discipline, and financial commitment. For many pilots, particularly those returning to aviation later in life, starting with something manageable often creates a far better ownership experience. Confidence grows gradually, skills sharpen naturally, and the airplane becomes a partner rather than a challenge. Before we wrap up, I'd like to ask you something important. If you had to choose one airplane to buy in 2026 from everything we discussed today, which would it be? Would you choose the simplicity of the Cessna 172 Skyhawk? The practical reliability of the Piper Cherokee? The performance of the Cirrus SR-22? Or the legendary reputation of the Beechcraft Bonanza G36? Maybe you'd go a completely different direction, something adventurous like the Cubcrafters X-Cub, Kit Fox Series 7, or Zenith CH-750 STOL. There's no wrong answer, but your answer reveals the kind of flying you truly want. So tell us in the comments, what airplane would you buy in 2026 and why? Your story might inspire another pilot who is still deciding. Because at the end of the day, airplanes are more than machines. They're gateways. Gateways to quiet mountain mornings, to spontaneous cross-country trips, to seeing the world from a perspective very few people experience. And whether that journey begins in a humble Cessna 150 or eventually grows into something larger, like a Pilatus PC-12, the most important step is choosing the right airplane for where you are today, not where you think you should be. Fly safe, and I'll see you in the next discussion.